Make America great again. Americans will benefit first. 2 years ago, millions of people believed that was the promise that would save their future. Factories would come back. Prices would go down. The border would be brought under control. Washington would stand with the people who work, pay taxes, and keep the country fed. But when victory turned into policy, a bitter truth emerged. Many people were not first in line to receive the benefits. They were first in line to pay the bill. Tariffs came before the factories. Costs came before the jobs. Families are worried about losing Medicaid. Farmers do not have enough workers to harvest their crops. Older Americans are worried about care costs. The policies arrived right on schedule, but lower prices, good jobs, and protection. They are still stuck in campaign speeches, and what is coming to light is only the surface. So who is really benefiting? Who is paying the price? Why has political victory not turned into an easier life? Today we are going to put every promise next to the real results, hear from the people directly involved, and show who is being protected and who is losing benefits. By the end of this video, you will understand that this was really a battle set up from the beginning. Are you ready? They were promised that tariffs would make foreign countries pay. Factories would come back. Jobs would come back. The countries that had taken advantage of the American market for too long would finally have to pay their share. I understand why many MAGA voters believed that promise. When a town has watched factories close, jobs disappear, and its children leave home to find a future, tariffs do not sound like a tax. They sound like a protective wall. But then the bill showed up. Not in Beijing. Not in Berlin. The bill landed right on the table of the people who voted to build that wall.
Maybe even the president's son can't exactly determine policy for the government. Maybe the president's son is not actually the president. And maybe U.S. senators don't have the pull that the President of the United States has when he's enacting these policies. So a few things to think about. No, I've not left the right. No, I'm not tearing down the right. No, I'm not tearing down Trump. Trump's fucking this one up, and I'm trying to actually help bring attention to that.
Josh Smith makes the knives in Montana. American products in American workshop and a plan to hire more American workers. Almost every word fits the promise to bring manufacturing back. But to expand, he needs a specialized machine from Germany worth $515,000 because that type of machine is not currently made in the United States. The additional tariff is about $77,250, nearly the cost of hiring one more worker. Did I hear that right? A business that wants to create American jobs has to pay extra for the machine it needs to create American jobs. Washington may call that protection. On the factory floor, that money may have another name, a job that never got filled. Of course, one machine does not prove the entire policy has failed, but this case exposes an uncomfortable contradiction. You cannot bring all manufacturing back if the very tools needed for manufacturing are also taxed on their way into America.
Bring them over the border every day. And when the 145% tariff hit, it caused a lot of stress on our business where we had to raise prices, and it caused demand to go down a little bit. And I just want to reiterate, I am a Trump supporter, and I believe he's going to figure out how to help us out. But I just want to say that, cuts represents the small businesses and the American dream, and the 145% tariff really threatens that.
You voted for President Trump 3 times, in fact, 2016, 2020, 2024. What do you say to the Trump supporters out there who say, hey, he brought up tariffs all the time in the campaign? I mean, what did you think as a business owner when you heard that? Were you skeptical of it, or did you think they would be more targeted like they were in the first term? How do you respond to that criticism?
Stephen Borelli says he voted for Trump 3 times. He still believes in the goal of America first. What frustrates him is not the idea of domestic manufacturing, but the speed. Tariffs can be signed in a few minutes. A supply chain cannot be built in a few minutes. Factories need land machinery, materials, skilled workers in many months, sometimes in many years. But when a container reaches the port, the bill arrives immediately. During that gap, businesses are left with only a few choices. Raise prices, accept lower profits, delay hiring, or stop placing orders. I wish what I just heard that had only been a dream last night. But it was not. This is the real math facing people who still want to believe in the MAGA agenda while their own businesses have to pay out of pocket to survive the road toward the future of American manufacturing. Now let us move on to one more case.
Alright guys, I didn't really want to have to get on here and do this, but I had to. These are fiberglass stakes right here. Those big bulky stakes on the back of the truck, wooden stakes. I called 2 weeks ago to get a quote on these fiberglass steaks because we need some more steaks this year. I got a quote, 83 cents. I called the man this morning. I said, hey, I know these tariffs are crazy and everything going on. I said, what can you do me on those fiberglass steaks now if we needed a load? It's a 3-month ETA from time you place the order. He said, Taylor, you don't want to hear this price that I'm about to give you. And I said, well, give it to me anyways. He said, each of those steaks now is going to be $1.74 a piece. And I said, well, you know, and I know both that we can't do that, and that's going to be impossible. So that's just to let you know a little bit of what we're going through out here on our farm and what farmers in general are going through. These tariffs, not the best thing for our country. I voted for Trump.
This farmer says the price of fiberglass posts rose from $0.83 to $1.74 each. One post does not sound like much, but a farm buys hundreds, even thousands of them. This is how a decision in Washington reaches the field. No applause, no American flags in the background, and just a new number on a price quote. He voted for Trump. He has not said he is leaving MAGA. He has simply started asking whether this is part of the deal he chose. Tariffs are collected at the American border, and the American importing business pays them first. The costs can then be divided among suppliers, businesses, workers, and customers. The money does not disappear. It just gets pushed from one pair of hands to another until it reaches someone who cannot push it any further. And the question frustrating some MAGA voters is this: if this policy was created to protect my business, why is my business the first place the bill gets sent? But prices are only the first bill. When cuts begin reaching Medicaid food assistance and nursing homes, MAGA voters will face an even more painful question. If the government pulls back, who will carry the rest? Can someone vote to cut waste, then discover a few months later that their own medication, their child's meals, and their parents' nursing home are also on the chopping block? The answer is absolutely. Many MAGA voters support tightening Medicaid and food assistance because they believe the targets are fraud, so people who do not qualify are people who are able to work but deliberately refuse to. That sounds reasonable. Nobody wants taxpayer money wasted, but the system does not walk into every home and ask who is a good person, who is trying, and who truly needs help. The system works through standards, paperwork, deadlines, and check boxes. And sometimes getting just one box wrong can knock an entire family out of the safety net.
My medication, it runs $20,000 a month without insurance. I make $800 a month. Oh, that will kill me. That would kill my friends. That would kill millions of people in this country if they lose their health care.
We're in California's District 22, a rural community in the state's Central Valley. This district voted for Trump for the first time in 2024, but now his policies threaten one of the benefits people here rely on the most. Do you know anyone personally who voted for President Trump but depends on benefits like Medicaid?
Oh yeah. I know a lot of people.
Listen to the man using an oxygen tank talk about what his medication would cost without insurance. Look at the mother caring for a child with cerebral palsy who needs seizure medication every day. These are not people sitting around waiting for the government to support them. These are families doing the hardest job of all, one that never shows up on a paycheck keeping someone they love alive. Did I hear that right? Washington says it will protect the people who truly need Medicaid, but the very people who believe they belong in that group now have to ask whether their family's name is in this protected section, or the section being removed. The shouting in this room does not automatically prove that all of MAGA has turned against Trump. The crowd includes people with many different political views, but the location is what matters. This is not a protest in the middle of a city that already opposes Trump. This is a Republican district where people are questioning their representative about Medicaid SNAP and the services they use every day. Because budget savings sounds great until the local hospital cuts services, a prescription gets denied, or a parent has to leave a care facility. I wish removing an expense from a spreadsheet also made illness disappear. Unfortunately, the human body does not read the federal budget.
Only about 28% of adults that receive SNAP benefits are unemployed during the month that they get those benefits. So that means that 72% of people who receive SNAP benefits are employed or temporarily between jobs or live in a household with someone who is employed. Over the course of a year, somewhere between 80 and 90% of adults who receive SNAP benefits work either before, during, or after the time that they receive SNAP benefits.
A school lunch may look small next to trillions of dollars, But for a child, it may be the most complete meal of the day. When SNAP or food assistance is reduced, families cannot divide hunger into smaller pieces. They can only take money away from the electric bill, rent, medication, or the parents' own meals. And Medicaid plays another role that many people often confuse with Medicare long-term care. If nursing facilities lose funding, the work of caregiving does not disappear. Bathing a mother, giving a father his medication, and waking up at 3 in the morning simply gets transferred from a paid worker to an unpaid child. When that child has to leave a job, the family does not just gain another person who needs care. They also lose someone who earns money. They voted to cut fraud, but is Washington also transferring the cost of caregiving back into their own living room? And when the bill leaves the hospital and reaches the farms, another contradiction appears. The border is tighter, but who will do the work that keeps food coming to the table? What happens when a policy created to protect American jobs makes some jobs disappear right in the middle of a shift? Border control was one of the biggest promises that brought Trump back to the White House. MAGA voters wanted illegal immigration, stopped laws enforced, and people who committed serious crimes deported. That goal still has strong support within the Republican Party. So it would not be honest to say MAGA voters have all turned against immigration policy. But the story starts to change when the campaign moves away from the border and into the local economy itself.
My Uber Eats driver getting arrested by ICE, part 2. During the whole arrest process, the guy clearly says that he doesn't understand English very well and that he wasn't sure what was going on. He didn't know why he was being arrested. They didn't explain to him why he was being arrested. I tried to offer him, Google Translate or something like that. The officers denied that and would not let anybody talk to him in any language that he could understand. After they arrested him and put him in handcuffs, they walked him to the back of the car and they put him in chains like he was an animal, around his waist, around his hands, and around his ankles. He was not threatening anybody. He was delivering food. You guys pulled him over because you profiled him, not because his plate was wrong, and then admitted you were wrong and proceeded to follow up with questioning about his immigration status.
The man in the video is not climbing over a border fence. He is working. He still has a food order in his hand, and his shift is not over, but the delivery driver disappears from the system within minutes. One case does not represent millions of workers. The video also does not tell us everything about the man's legal status, but look at what happens around him. The worker loses his income. His family may lose money for basic living expenses. The restaurant loses a driver. The customer never receives the order. A law enforcement decision instantly becomes an economic problem. Did I hear that right? The border is thousands of miles away, but the bill shows up right at the customer's front door. And the impact does not stop with the person being detained. When other workers see that happen, they start wondering whether one day's pay is worth the risk of not making it home. The government does not have to arrest everyone. It only takes enough people being too afraid to go to work for the labor market to change. Agriculture feels it first. Crops cannot sit in the field waiting for Washington to finish debating. Fruits and vegetables that ripen today may spoil within just a few days. When workers do not show up, farmers still have to pay for land, water, seeds, fuel, and equipment. Then the familiar answer appears: hire Americans. I also want Americans to have more jobs and better wages, but I wish a slogan could make hundreds of experienced workers appear in the fields at 5 tomorrow morning. Higher wages could help. Automation could help. Legal worker programs could help too. But all of those require money and time. Strawberries do not care how many more meetings Congress needs. When there are not enough workers to harvest crops, production falls. When production falls, food prices may face even more pressure. Small towns also lose customers when workers are afraid to go outside shop or visit a clinic. This is not yet proof that MAGA has turned against Trump. The contradiction lies somewhere else. Voters want a tighter border, but are they willing to pay more at the grocery store, watch crops rot in the fields, and see local businesses lose workers to get it? The government cuts one position, closes one office, or moves one service online. But does that work really disappear, or does it just get placed back on the shoulders of ordinary people? The administration says restructuring federal agencies will reduce layers of management, limit waste, and move employees closer to the communities they serve. In 2026, the United States Department of Agriculture announced changes across its research statistics, food safety, nutrition, and rural development divisions. Some departments were reorganized or moved out of Washington to regional centers. That sounds pretty reasonable. Fewer officials, less paperwork, faster service. I would like to believe that too. I wish changing an organizational chart was all it took to make people's applications move faster overnight, but an older person in a small town does not care what a department was just renamed. They only want to know whether someone will answer the phone when they call. A farmer does not need to hear more about this streamlining the government. He needs crop data loans and program guidance to arrive on time. When the office is farther away, staffing is reduced, or the entire process moves online, the cost does not disappear. People have to spend more time making calls, uploading paperwork, traveling farther, or asking family members to handle it for them. For a young person living in a city, an online form may take only 10 minutes. For an older person who is not comfortable with technology or a rural family with weak internet service, it could mean days of waiting. The Social Security Administration also set goals to reduce its workforce and reorganize its operations, while saying technology and staff reassignments would help maintain services. But the agency's own reports acknowledge that funding and staffing determine the level of service it can provide. This is not proof that every restructuring effort fails. Some changes may genuinely eliminate duplicated work and move employees closer to the people they serve. But the measurement is not how many desks were cleared out of Washington. The measurement is whether people get answers faster, whether applications are processed on time, whether farmers can access programs, whether older people have to ask their children to take time off work to handle paperwork. Because when the government saves 1 hour of work, but a family loses an entire day making up for it, that is not necessarily savings. It is just a bill passed on to someone else, and the person receiving that bill is usually not the person getting most of the benefits from those cuts. Can a law be called a victory for working people when families at the bottom lose money for food and health care, while families at the top keep more than $10,000 extra each year? I am not asking that to be shocking. The numbers are already shocking enough. According to the Congressional Budget Office's final analysis of the 2025 law, the lowest earning 10% of households are expected to lose an average of about $1,200 in resources each year from 2026 through 2034. The main reason is that Medicaid and SNAP provide fewer resources. Meanwhile, the highest earning 10% receive an average increase of about $13,600 each year, mainly because they pay less in taxes. But the direction of that transfer is very hard to misunderstand. One side loses health benefits, food assistance, and a safety margin that was already extremely thin. The other side keeps more income after taxes. Did I hear that right? We were told this policy was designed to put American workers first. But on the CBO spreadsheet, the people with the least lose resources, while the people who already have the most receive the largest increase in actual dollars. For a well-off family, a tax cut may mean more money to invest or a better vacation. For a family using Medicaid and SNAP, losing $1,200 is not some decorative number in a report. It could mean medication, a food, electricity, or several weeks of rent. Both are called budget adjustments, but one side adjusts its investment portfolio. The other adjusts how many meals it eats. To be fair, the law also provides tax benefits to some middle-income households. The CBO estimates that resources for groups in the middle of the income distribution will increase slightly. However, the overall picture still shows that the benefits and losses are not divided equally. About $900 billion in non-cash resources are reduced mainly through Medicaid and SNAP, while tax changes and cash transfers increase resources much more for groups near the top. This is where the frustration among MAGA voters becomes hard to avoid. They voted to reduce waste, lower taxes, and protect working people. But when the policy reaches real life, one question is still sitting on the table. Why do the families who need help the most have to sacrifice first, while the biggest beneficiaries are people who already have more financial breathing room than everyone else? The biggest danger is not that Medicaid or SNAP suddenly disappears one day. The danger is that benefits can be narrowed step by step, while many families still believe they have not been affected. A letter arrives late. An interview is missed. An income verification form is not submitted. A new requirement appears that people assume only applies to someone else. Then the card is still sitting in the wallet, but the benefits attached to it have changed. The new provisions are not being implemented everywhere on the same day. Medicaid is jointly operated by the federal government and the states. SNAP applications are reviewed and administered directly by each state. That means renewal dates, forms of verification methods, and contact procedures may differ depending on where someone lives. The USDA has also confirmed that the 2025 law changed certain SNAP eligibility rules, including work requirements and the eligibility of some groups of recipients. In other words, your neighbor may not have received a notice yet, but that does not guarantee your case is safe too. I'm not saying people should panic. I am saying they are not allowed to fall asleep. First, check whether your state Medicaid and SNAP agencies have the correct address, phone number, and email address. Do not let an envelope sent to an old home become the reason your family loses coverage. CMS recommends that Medicaid recipients update their contact information and watch for mail from the state and complete renewal paperwork by the deadline. Second, do not look at a verification request and automatically assume your benefits have ended. Read the reason. Carefully note the final response date and understand your right to request a review. SNAP decisions are made at the state level. Anyone who disagrees with a decision can request a fair hearing. Did I hear that right? A program created to help people who are short on money may require them to understand pages of procedures, remember deadlines, and spend hours on the phone. Unfortunately, frustration does not renew benefits on its own. For families with aging parents, the question needs to be asked right now: who is paying for long-term care? Medicare usually does not pay for long-term residence in a nursing home when the person mainly needs help with eating, bathing, and daily activities. Medicaid may help if that person meets the state's eligibility rules. Not every facility accepts Medicaid. Families need to ask the care facility 3 things: what the current source of payment is, what happens if Medicaid changes, and whether the patient may have to move. Do not wait for the final phone call saying the money is gone or the bed is no longer covered, because when the government changes one line in a budget, families do not get several months to build a nursing home in their living room. The consequences may not arrive today, but preparing after benefits are already gone is always more expensive than preparing before the first letter appears. This is not just a story about poor people or some government assistance program. When someone loses Medicaid, they may lose medication treatment and access to a doctor. When a care facility loses funding, older people may have to leave. Their family immediately becomes unpaid caregivers. One person has to cut working hours or quit a job while income insurance and retirement savings disappear at the same time. Hospitals lose revenue. Emergency rooms have to take in more patients later when they are sicker and more expensive to treat. People with private insurance face higher costs. Local businesses lose customers. In the end, taxpayers still have to pay for emergencies, crises, and consequences that could have been prevented earlier. Did I hear that right? We call that savings, then pay even more to deal with the damage at the end. Your neighbor losing Medicaid may not get your attention today, but tomorrow their hospital closes, your emergency room becomes overcrowded, and your insurance premium goes up. That is how the domino effect begins. And once the first piece falls, nobody is truly outside of it.